kind of limited series. You maybe find some inspiration from your book, pull it out to create a name.
Yeah. So welcome to the Eclipse of the Morning Star podcast.
Here we are, episode 1.
Episode 1.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to have you be the first guest, Adam Soltau.
Thank you. I'm honored to be the first guest in this podcast. It's super cool.
Most of you would probably know him better by his music name, Adam Meow.
Yep.
And let's go ahead and plug that immediately.
Yeah, you could you could find my music at adammeow.com or, find me on Spotify, SoundCloud, pretty much all the socials as Adam Meow. I'm a longtime DJ and a producer. I also am in the group 9 Lives, which is the side project I've been working with.
Yeah, so you guys have had a few awesome gigs recently, a couple festivals and such.
Had a few festivals. Last year we had our debut show at Applecross Music Festival. We've got another gig coming up, the Antidote Music Festival, which is in May. It's going to be super fun. Shout out to my homies in Sound Pieces who are throwing their second festival, which is going to be really fun. We've got a couple releases out. All in all, it's been really good. In my own personal music, I've been kind of undergoing a rebrand as of lately, so I'm going to be launching that over this next couple weeks. My birthday's in like 2 weeks, so I want to be relaunching the day after my birthday. So
well, you guys know where to hit him now with some happy birthdays.
Yeah, hit me up.
So Adam did a piece in Eclipse of the Morning Star, one of the more exciting chapters, Macabracadabra.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been looking, perusing your book, seeing this brand new printed copy for the first time. I didn't even get a chance to look at my piece yet.
Hot off the presses.
Yeah, it feels really good to see it, to hold it in my hands. Kind of like I had mentioned to you before we started recording, knowing you for so many years. For those of you who don't know, Robin and I have been friends for 15-ish years, if not more, back in the old San Francisco days.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just knowing you for this many years, knowing your story, knowing you've always talked about writing a book, to when you started writing that book, to now this moment in time where I'm holding like the advanced printer copy of it. It's really amazing. I'm super proud of you. It's a monumental feat to create a piece like this, or a whole last book. So
thank you, my friend.
This is amazing.
Both for the kind words and for the beautiful piece of artwork.
Oh shit, yeah, my piece looks sick as fuck in here, dude.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. Wow.
That was kind of the unexpected variable of the production of the book, was the artwork, right? So I've been asked a couple times, why?
Yeah,
like,
good question.
Why would you do that?
Why you did that?
Yeah, so I was originally thinking a piece of art for every chapter. And then I was going to go the traditional publishing route, and I knew they would have something to say about that, because there's a lot of guidelines you want to follow, and which I broke all of the rules for this particular book. So I kind of gave up that idea, and then once I decided to self-publish, it opened that up again. I pondered for a moment doing the illustrations myself, and after that silly idea passed, I realized I have so many friends that are so talented, and I think there is an about the artist section in the back. I did address the other component to my thinking, which is we're in this age of AI, right? Which is a heated topic, especially in books. So it just seemed like at this point in time, it would be really cool to feature the artists that are kind of battling man versus machine right now. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the why. I don't know. When somebody asks you, how do you describe yourself as an artist? Because you're multifaceted, a painter, a graphic designer, a musician, What don't you do?
Not too many things. I do most things, just not necessarily do all things well. But
Sure.
yeah, no, I think just with the arts in general, I think it's a natural call for all people who are in creative endeavors. Like the more you learn, the more you want to expand. And so, maybe that also loops back to being an Aries, but oftentimes I'm like get really excited about something and then I'll hammer it for like 6 months and then I'll never do it again. So like, but I think the path of the artist is one of constant learning. Like all of us, like no matter what your medium is, you tend to always want to strive to get better, to keep learning, to keep trying. And then all of a sudden you'll find something that inspires you, whether you watch a movie, you go to an art gallery, you see someone else's work, you read someone's book, like no matter what it is, you continuously are pulling in inspiration, and you continuously want to channel that inspiration into your own work. And so for, I think, just about every artist I know, we wind up doing so many different things, wearing so many hats, walking down so many paths in our lives, until we find the one that like really, really like strikes a chord. And I feel like once you find that thing that you strike a chord with, that's how we often identify as artists. Where like, say if you ask me what I do now or how to identify now, I'd be like, well, I'm a musician. Like I've been really enjoying producing music, playing music and DJing. That's like my favorite thing right now. So I'd be like, I'm a musician. But if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said I'm a painter or I'm a graphic designer. But currently I'd say I'm a musician. So
Yeah.
So.
Definitely. And I have, that was kind of a mission for you, particularly with this book, was to drag you back into the visual arts. Because when we met, you were a painter, and a very good one at that, by the way.
Thank you.
Which, for me, painting is that one medium that it requires so much patience. But for you, well, everything seems to come so naturally.
That's only because you're getting the curated view of something, but like, especially if you're talking to me about like one of my zones, which was painting. I was a pretty prolific painter for a lot of years, but I've been doing that ever since I was like a little kid. Ever since I could like hold a pencil, I've been like in the arts, and especially the fine arts. So that's like my zone. But when it comes to plenty of other things, like, I get just as frustrated, I give up just as quickly, and I get just as pissed. So like, I'm not instantly good at something, so I'm like, fuck this, I hate doing this. But like with anything, with any art form, it requires like intense amounts of practice and dedication. And actually, what's something that might be really interesting is kind of a thought I was having earlier. It was about community versus isolation as an artist, which the double-edged sword, and it might be like the ultimate like irony, ultimate conundrum we face as an artist, where you cannot make it without community. Like, you're your network. Where does your network? Or whatever.
Yeah. You need the support.
Like, you 100% need community, not to create art, but to be like a successful artist, especially in 2025 with the onslaught of social media and marketing, managers, agencies, like all of the stuff you need to essentially make it to the upper echelons of the artists, to be what they may consider a successful artist. You need community. And I mean, say, even look in your book, this is an excellent example of community, having all of these artists, 33 artists, come together to contribute images to a book. I think that was incredible. That many people rose to the call and did that thing. So they helped create a whole body of work, inspired by your work, which is fascinating. But the other side of that coin is the isolation that you need to have as an artist. It's almost, it is where you need, the space you need to be in to channel that creativity. So you can't necessarily channel that type of creativity or that raw inspiration when you're always surrounded by people. The art is, at least in my opinion, is very much a solitary practice. Like, you absolutely have to be home, or in the studio, you have to be in those moments of isolation And maybe you could speak to me a little bit about your process, because right now we're talking about community as well as what it took to write this book.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that speaks to writing especially. I think it's a lonely endeavor. It's both lonely and yet it's like an ethereal community, right? Because all these characters, everyone that's in the book, they're with you when you're writing it. But to speak on like community versus, or specifically music versus writing, I had an experience. I shut down everything to write. I took my music studio down and just wanted to focus specifically on writing. And it was glorious, you know. It's like a metamorphosis to finding yourself and locking the door to the point where you don't even really want to talk to other people, you know, or it becomes like a total distraction to have anyone penetrate that bubble, right? But there was a song I released, I think last year, Summer Fever under Swallow Key, and I had written it a long time ago, and for fun I busted it out, actually as a distraction from the writing, you know. And you were around when I was doing that, and I started plugging in keyboards one at a time, and starting to deal with program faults and you know, pathways of the signals going wrong, and immediately
the wall of bullshit that separates you from the creative act.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's something beautiful about just having a word processor and a typewriter and your syntax, and that's it. And so I found myself like, it takes a lot of determination to make music, especially electronic music. I think, as you well know, you have to have severe dedication to even just getting the signals on and going
100%.
to the point. How many ideas have you lost in the process of trying to press record?
That's why I don't normally ever use fucking Native Instruments plugins anymore. I spend like an hour just like dealing with that, or trying to find my libraries, or dealing with software, or downloading new shit. By the time I like actually get to music, it's been like an hour or two, and I'm just mad, and I'm just like, okay, done.
But do you remember the days when you first started out with that level of frustration? It was a short fuse, right?
That level of frustration was very high. Actually, and I feel like that goes to what you were saying earlier when you're talking about painting. You know, it's like when I first started producing electronic music, I was like, yeah, man, I got this. And then once I got inside the box, I was like, no, I don't got this. And there's probably solid like 2 years before I ever felt like I got this.
Yeah.
And then years after that before I finally was like, oh, okay, this is cool now. But I think with any of the arts, it's like that's your barrier to entry is learning something that's insanely difficult. Unless if you want to master it, you want to be really successful at it, you want to be a professional at it, it's an incredible barrier to entry. But the artist or maybe the creator, like you keep following that passion. You don't let that barrier to entry deter you. I think that's what really separates a lot of us. Say I don't even want to say the pros from the not pros or whatever. Maybe like the dabblers from the full timers, something like that. Like the full timers are like, you know what, this is what I do. I'm still interested in this thing. I'm curious about it. So I'm going to keep coming back, or maybe we're just gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some masochism happening there for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was my experience with putting that one track out. You know, like I have albums that are available, but that level of frustration was quickly reached. Like, and so I think I said during that time period, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with music. I found my calling in writing, and it's such a, you know, the isolation is absolutely necessary, but for someone like me who has a little bit of social anxiety as well, it's like, all right. But now that social anxiety is kicking up as the book starts to near its
as it will, because there's always going to be that fear and doubt that is, you know, your ego, your logical mind, your critical mind who wants to like keep you where you're at because where you're at is safe and comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And taking on these massive endeavors, which is, say, releasing your art, no matter what it is, it's like opening yourself up for criticism and judgment and exposure, especially with something so personal as a memoir, you know, an autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it's like that's deeply personal. And so, you know, that little ego in the back of your mind is going to be like, don't do it. You got to stay safe. Stay in your lane, dude.
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling around for the eject button the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure you're coming up with like a million reasons of like, well, I can't do it this, or well, I got to wait for that, or like it's going to be a couple weeks for that. Like, there's that procrastination that keeps you safe, you know.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I know you wanted to kind of touch on. I saw something that you wrote down that was something about writer's block.
Yeah.
And I love that question because it's never been there for me. You know, I'm not saying that as like I don't have writer's block, but yeah, that's an interesting philosophy, right? Like even the term writer's block is something that can cause writer's block. So my folder for all of my writing is called the writer's block, and it's cool. Just never been an issue. You know, like because of that, it's like, no, I'm not blocked by a lack of ideas. I need a break. It's really what it comes down to.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
You know? So I was going to ask that about you as far as your writing goes. Do you get writer's block? And if so, how do you address that?
Yeah, well, definitely. I definitely do. But interestingly enough, like I feel like it depends on the medium. Where I think, say, if I'm writing, like which I've been doing a lot of writing lately, I think that flows a lot more effortlessly because I think that is the least amount of what we call this impedance to the signal flow. And most of the time when I'm writing, I'm doing it with like a pencil or a pen and paper. You know, like I don't even allow a keyboard to get in my way because I don't feel like I type fast enough.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your artwork and how you came to create this particular piece because you use a lot of different mediums in visual arts, and I've been gleaning some painting techniques from you for a while now. And do you prefer oil or acrylic?
I guess it depends on the end result I'm going for. I feel like if it's a fun painting, speed and efficiency, I would do acrylics. But if it's something that a bit more complex, I would probably do that with oils because which just takes way more time. So yeah, just depending on the painting. But I think oftentimes I do work in acrylics just because they're like easier or it's faster. I should say not easier, just faster.
Yeah.
This particular piece though that I did for the book, I did that all digitally on my iPad.
Nice.
Which I've been really enjoying trying to apply those like painting techniques and illustration techniques and to the digital world. My iPad, it's like been super fun to work on.
Did you what program did you use?
I was using Procreate, which is the best, honestly. If any of y'all aspiring artists out there don't have an iPad or a Procreate, fucking get it. It's like $10. It's one of the best programs out there. I think maybe like what I really do enjoy about working on the iPad is kind of like what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where the latency to creation is a lot less. It's like limited, where I'm just like, I want to make some splatter stuff. I could do that like right away. I want to erase something. I do it right away. Like, yeah, I could have done this in painting, and I had thought about it, but I was like, you know what? No, like this is the way I want to do it. I just wanted it to flow, and it did. And I think I might have been the last one to complete a piece, and I think
you were one of the last.
And you're a little agitated. So,
well,
I know you were like asking me about it multiple times, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll get to it."
It's funny because there's something in that, because the people I'm the closest with were definitely the last.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes. Yeah, with your close friends, because you're just like, I can get to that.
I can fuck around. But you were also so busy at the time.
I was very busy at the time, but it was actually what we touched on earlier. There wasn't a deadline. There wasn't like, yo, I need this on this day. So it was just like, yeah, man.
Yeah. I was trying to give everyone space to create. Yeah. There was a loose deadline that probably no one paid attention to because it was deep into the novel length email that I sent.
Yeah.
Everybody read the first paragraph of specs and we're like, cool, I'll get around to this at some point. But you were at Eclipse Fest? Is that where you were playing?
I was like leaving to go to the Eclipse Festival to play at the Texas Eclipse Festival. I think it was probably like the week before that, and it was just like, dude, like, I need this now.
Yeah.
That's actually, and I was like, you know what? All right, fuck yeah, let's let this rip. I was like, I got to do this. I want to do this. It wasn't like for any lack of trying, but yeah, like you were saying, it was a very busy time for me. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it, dude. Let's let this rip.
Yeah.
And that's where I busted out the iPad. I was like, again, I could do this with speed. I was like, a painting would take me like weeks.
Mm-hmm.
To do this as a painting would take forever. But like, even though it's not even very complex, but it's just the way I paint is very slow and meticulous, which is ridiculous. But, again, the iPad is just like, all right, let's let this rip and let this flow. And I think I probably did this in a weekend, like 2 days.
Nice.
I think I did the initial draft. I think I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. And then I completed it. I don't remember if you gave me any feedback or not, but
I did not. No. That was a goal of mine with most of the artwork, is kind of letting go.
Yeah.
There's knowing how to delegate, and there's a reason why I chose everyone. You know, so I really wanted to stay out of everyone's way. I wanted to not give anyone any specs, but obviously we need to fit into a 6x9 book.
Yeah.
And even that, a few people, as you scroll through, ignored. Yeah. I was speaking of all the meows. I definitely liken this experience for myself as wrangling cats. There's 33 different individuals that are absolutely on their own trip. Amazing trip.
Yeah, wrangling one artist is enough.
Yeah, wrangling myself was enough. Obviously, it took me a while to write the book alone. Mm-hmm. But you were not the last.
Yes. Well, that's perfect then.
I was.
Yeah. Oh. Well, perfect.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. So...
Wait, I think that's really amazing, just allowing the art to flow, because, every single piece is different. It's interesting to see every individual artist's interpretation, because it's different chapters, it's different artists, it's like completely different visions, and so to see the way people work is really fascinating.
It really is. It was one of the hidden blessings of the experience. It was nice icing on the cake for the overall process of the book.
Yeah. And just to see overall the level of intention and time that everyone spent doing it, it's really amazing and super inspiring.
Yeah. Everyone in the book was super inspiring. It was a tear-jerking, humbling experience. One thing that I was not prepared for was we all have our own lives going on, and just it was amazing because I got to reconnect with some old spirits of mine that were just great friends at a certain point in life, and we grew up and everybody went into their own lives, and so I got to reconnect. But man, I was not expecting to absorb all of everyone's lives at the same time under a deadline. We're artists, right? And that comes with a certain degree of passion, I think, and also call it like the effect of the Morning Star, but some shit was going down with folks. People were struggling, people were But everyone appreciated the distraction from their lives. And me trying to be a good listener and a friend, you know, I was happy to reconnect and talk. But at the time, my significant other and I were going through a huge life change, which at this point will still remain a secret due to the materials of the book. But massive life change that was just working me hard, you know, really working me hard. And so, I just wasn't really prepared to fall in love with everybody all at once again and feel their feels as they're struggling in life. And there were some moments that I was like, what the fuck did I just do?
Definitely, you know, just to you speak on that a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, having to do a piece for this book, of course, there's all of the life stuff that I'm dealing with. And then, you know, you're hitting me, be like, I need this by this day. And I'm like, I'm trying to leave. And I get, you know, all the shit going on at the music festival to play, all the other life stuff was going on. Of course, I'm like, God damn it, I'll just fucking do this fucking thing. But, you know, the moment I got into it, I was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. You know?
That's art, right?
That is the art. And especially oftentimes, I think, in our lives as professional artists, you don't normally get to do art for art's sake. A lot of the fun stuff, like, often gets pushed to the side or put on the shelf because you're like, well, I got to do all this stuff for my clients. And I got all the other deadlines and I got to do all this stuff, you know? And so this, you know, was a really nice escape for, you know, art for art's sake, you know, doing art for someone else, like, you know, for a greater cause was really rewarding and it felt really good, you know. So I was glad I got to do that. Actually, especially because this chapter was, I don't know if I could talk about the chapter or give the details.
You can.
Loosely.
Let's talk about it. I could always, you know, cut your ass.
Edit it out. Yeah. Either way, okay. This chapter was about you know, the pyramid eclipse. You know, the eclipse at Pyramid Lake. You had been booked to play, and you know you'd asked me to back you up and play with you. I just thought it was really kind of a cosmic, whatchamacallit, coincidence, or maybe a very circular.
It was literally a cosmic.
Oh yeah.
The planets were aligned.
The planets were aligning. So okay,
it's 2012.
So
now.
you were asking me to finish this before I was going to play at the Texas eclipse, which was however many years later. It was like 10 years later or something like that. So like, it was just really interesting. It's like I'm working on this piece about, what was it, 2012, I think. Yep. So about the eclipse in 2012, and I'm about to go play the eclipse in 2023.
Yeah, that's
and I was like, fuck, that was pretty cool because it transported me back to this time that I'd largely forgot about because it's been lots of years. You know, so even reading the chapter from your perspective was also interesting too. It's like, oh shit, man, like that's what was going on, and like lots of stuff that I didn't know. Just either way, it's just really cool. It's cosmic because it brought me back, and I was like, oh man, that was pretty rad.
It was pretty rad.
Pretty rad, you know. The trials and tribulations was pretty rad. And unbeknownst to me at the time, like the Texas eclipse would be fraught with just as much ups and downs and difficulty as the Pyramid Lake one was.
I imagined. Well, I think I kind of commented on in the book about everyone. You could notice everyone that particular eclipse was going through it.
Yeah.
But for the artists presenting, which I don't want to give away the chapter, but you nailed the moment in this piece of artwork. I think that speaks to, I'm wondering if, even if there isn't an eclipse or if there isn't a deadly weather phenomenon that is about to attack the festival, if that's kind of the experience of the artist regardless, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think those, just in general, those are really cosmic years. I think to say that, you know, everybody's going through something around this time, it was like, yeah, that was actually eclipse time, come to think about it. So Pyramid Lake, that was 2012. Well, obviously 2012 was crazy tumultuous, and 2023. But I mean, every year after 2020 has been insane. So like,
it's true.
Who knows?
And only getting crazier by the day in 2025.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I'd like to ask you a question really quick.
Sure.
It was about, since we're reaching back in time here too, like, what's a piece of advice you would give your younger self? I mean, I don't mean your child self. I mean, like the younger self who started writing this book. What was it, like 6 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
What's a piece of advice you would give yourself? In general. Now that you're done, now that you're here, now that you're holding a printed copy in your hand, what's a piece of advice you would give yourself before you started out writing this book?
That's a good question.
Or you could think on that. We could circle back if you want.
Maybe we will, because I think I did it right, according to myself. I learned the rules, I ignored them, and, well, the ones worth ignoring. But, yeah, I think about that a lot. I knew what a special experience this was going to be to write this book in particular. I've been waiting to write this one my whole life, so I made sure to take my time with it 100% and stay in the moment. And, I surrounded myself with a lot of the advice, which you can see in this studio as I put it up. But I'm sure there's a great piece of advice I could give myself, So I will circle back around to that.
Yeah, I feel like, does art become an escape, or does it amplify what you're feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I don't want to necessarily like talk to, I know I don't want to give too much away, but it's just like, also it's like what you want to share about your process, because I know how this difficult this was. Yeah. To go through so many traumatic events over and over again.
Over and over and over. Yeah. So it's most definitely a beautiful escape. All of the artwork and art forms that I've experienced are. And yeah, I think that if I do it correctly, they also amplify what I'm feeling. And that amplification helps process that and release it. Until you start processing it again and again and again. Yeah. And I've been asked a couple times, this seems like it might be a very therapeutic experience, right? And I guess the best answer is, like, through the second draft, it was extremely therapeutic. Releasing old wounds. But then, as I do, I decided to incorporate some sacred numerology magic into the creation of the book. And in my repetitive word pass, I had kept a detailed document of all the repetitive words. And I wanted to narrow them all down to multiples of sacred numerology, which to me are 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 23, 42, to name a few.
Okay.
And that, my friend, was not therapeutic. What that meant was, if I'm tracking a certain word, and let's say I wanted to narrow the usages of that word down to 9 instances, then I was scanning the book for that particular word and landing on a different trauma and another trauma and another trauma. Yeah. And then finishing that word and going to the next word alphabetically. And so what that meant was I was touching all of my traumas at light speed many, many times a day. And at the time there was construction next door, which seems to be a theme in my life. Whenever I'm going through the most difficult shit, there is a hammer or something, a jackhammer going on. So yeah, that was basically when it shifted into a bit more of a Mad Hatter experience from there on, especially because I did end up completing that project of the sacred numerology. And
I'd say that's why most of us went to art school. We didn't study math.
Right. It's true.
But actually, can you tell me a little bit more about the sacred numerology? Maybe for the lay person who isn't familiar with that, like why you use that, and or what was the importance of it, and how it's interwoven into your writing.
Yeah, I think that's the old like chicken or the egg question as well, like whether we know the magic of these words exists or not. They do. I think it comes down to, for me, the attraction was a lot of the old beautiful architecture is created through sacred geometry, which is basically a harmonious mathematics, the golden ratio. And so in numerology, it's basically assigning a spiritual definition for each number and as they exist in the universe, which tends to be used in a lot of religious and spiritual practices. And so as this was something of the sort, I thought it appropriate to kind of incorporate something less literally and more like magically behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you.
Very difficult.
Very challenging,
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and you also dabble. I don't know if dabble's the right word, but you also are. I'm thinking of your clothing line, which we haven't talked about.
Oh yeah, the Secret Fire.
The Secret Fire.
Check it out, secretfire.shop.
Secret Fire. Check out those threads. There's some really beautifully made as well. High quality ink.
Oh yeah, and really nice screen prints.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice quality fabric. Yeah. So yeah, my clothing line, The Secret Fire. I launched that last year. It was a lot of it. It was a challenge, honestly. I think, the art part was easy because I've been doing the art my whole life. But then when it came down to business, that was like way harder. So like just getting everything online and just doing all of the stuff, all of the steps you needed to take to like do an actual clothing company was hard. And that really like taxed me pretty tremendously because it was one of those things that I was just doing in the midst of everything else, just trying to live life. And it was a challenge. And then once I got everything like online and all the back end taken care of and all the stuff, and I had an inventory, then it was like, now what do I do? Now how do I market this? Like, oh shit, we'd have to do an entire social media campaign.
Right. To
figure out advertising campaigns. I gotta do all this stuff, which is like, oh God. So it just got super duper overwhelming, and I just sort of put it on the shelf. Fully intend to pick it up this year because I have a ton more designs and stuff like ready to go. Just definitely also ran out of money for that, but
as one does,
yeah, it's expensive to do. So I fully intend to pick that back up this year. I definitely look forward to it. Now that I'm in a different headspace and I'm kind of like, really standing in my power as an artist, I'm like ready to go.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'd be rocking some Secret Fire for sure.
Yeah. But I guess what you were leading into about, sacred geometry and numerology and stuff like that. I learned a lot of that when I was going into college. I had one teacher in particular who taught me all about sacred geometry and the golden ratio. That's where I learned all of that stuff. Basically the mathematics of art, which was really amazing. And that was like my freshman year in college. I learned that. I was like, holy shit, super cool. It's math I understand. And so this like led me into many spots in my art, and often definitely a lot of rabbit holes I fell into. It really led into graphic design, as that's what I was doing professionally for a long time. Still am. I'd freelance as a graphic designer, but a lot of times before I would make a painting, before I'd make a drawing, before I do like any type of design work, I'd sit around and I would build this entire grid system, spend just hours creating grids and stuff like that, just so I could do my drawing and everything was like mathematically perfect. All this stuff, which was cool. It was cool, and it was one of those things I don't tell anybody about. It's just what I would do, like on the back end of the thing, But then I also realized at some point that, especially in the visual arts, like those mathematics are like inherent. Like say the rule of thirds or something like that for photography. It's like putting something in the third of a composition. It's like it automatically falls into the golden ratio. And so I think after like training myself and learning this and understanding the rules, it's like I just stopped doing it because I realized that it was there. It was already built in for me. So I would just have to continuously follow like my vision and my inspiration, and I would just that geometry was there.
Yeah, that's the beauty of mathematics in the universe, I think.
Yep, shout out to God.
Most definitely. Yeah. Which is, kind of what the book is about. But
okay, what is one weird ritual or habit you have when you're creating?
Yeah, so I have a pretty rigid ritual that I do, which is a compilation of a few different activities. I have a ritual and a codex, and as opposed to sharing it with my younger self who developed this, I guess I would share my own sacred ritual with my younger self in the beginning. That could work for anyone. For me, I want to be as connected to source as I possibly can be whenever creating anything. And I've found that ritual is a good way to do that. So I sage the joint almost daily.
Okay. Good.
And I do a daily ritual of gratitude, self-love, and affirmation. I meditate. I'll take a class, a short class of something. Recently that's been BBC Maestro. Feel free to give me a discount next time, BBC Maestro. Before that, it was Masterclass. I found those classes to be really insightful.
Nice. Okay.
Something I think that I learned over the course of time. Like on my list here, I have select music, right?
Yes.
But what it should probably say is select the appropriate mood music, which seems automatic for someone like you and I. But our friend Ethan Gold gave me a great piece of advice during that that beautiful experience of doing the repetitive word pass. And at the time, he was offloading some like super old techno music that he had recorded in Germany right when raves were happening. And so he passed me this long playlist of old house music, and once I put that on, just even the rhythm of that, it wouldn't have been the mood music that I was listening to. It was the mood music that was sending me to a dark place while I was doing this. And once I switched that, like I could then crack through all of the repetitive word pass a little more machine like and less emotionally attached to it.
That techno's all about, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Light a candle. Yeah, that's a huge one. And I think like the strange thing that crept in there at the end, I'm a sports fan. And so there are a few individuals that I really admire that are in sports, and I notice the rituals that they have every time they take the court or the field or the pitch or whatever it might be. They just throw up a little, like you just did, shout out to God, and it wasn't really a part of my being at the time. And so as opposed to like saying a full prayer or something to that effect and setting intentions, it's like, especially as you get into the to-do list, I've got to finish this, I'm on a deadline thing, it doesn't mean that I should not do the quick, what's up, source?
Yeah, totally.
A very, very, very important one, which I can always remind my younger self of, whether or not he ever retains this information or not, no matter how many times he's reminded by himself and every inspiring person that's passed in front of him, by most of the artists that are in the book, including yourself, who is my lifeline, that I've called many times during the process of this book. The closing affirmation, there are affirmations in that daily ritual, but to finish a session, setting myself up for the next day, and to affirm that even if I put one word on paper, it was an important word because you've moved the story forward. Even if you didn't put a word on paper and you showed up, you showed up, which is really the only thing you need to do, right?
That's what the professionals do, man.
Yeah.
As we were talking about earlier, the rest of us just show up.
Exactly.
Can't
Just
wait for inspiration to strike, dude. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. That's kind of my sacred ritual, but I keep it to a codex as well, which is to always remember your purpose. Find a purpose, first of all, that's one area where I kind of lost myself in music, I think, was that lack of purpose. It's easy to do in music because there's so many amazing things that you could do.
Well, you wrote a ton of music when you were active, You wrote a lot of stuff. That's in itself is hard to do.
It is. And the whole
writing
album,
one song is fucking hard.
Yeah, and completing it. A sensei of mine added this one, which is stop writing when the flow trickles out. You can feel that moment, and for me, it's a poisonous moment and can quickly cascade into negativity when basically I'm fucking hungry. I need to eat.
Typically the time.
I get hangry really quickly. So even if I've been banging it out, trying to write, fighting that battle, that opens the door for my self-criticism to come in. And so just the simple idea of, all right, time to walk away now. If I feel that negative thought creeping in, even just take a break. You don't have to quit for the day, but walk away.
Well, they say creativity comes from your stomach.
That definitely applies to me. Ask anyone that knows me. I've got some other personal notes there to myself, which is just reward yourself for the work done. I don't do that enough, just literally reward yourself with the silliest or anything.
Don't forget to thank yourself,
Yeah.
When you're done with creating, it's a lot of fucking work, and often it's selfless. So don't forget to give yourself a pat on the back when you're done.
Pat on the back.
Just be like, we did it. Yeah, nice job.
Take myself out for ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay to have fun. It's okay to feel good.
That's most important. Yeah.
So, I'll pass this question on to you as well, because you are really good at staying in that pocket. At least on the surface level, I think you have a really amazing energy about you and your confidence in the work that you create. And, can you speak on that for a second in closing? And how do you stay in that pocket?
It's interesting. I'd say looking at your codex and your sacred ritual list here, it's nearly identical to what I do. Kind of the same idea. Usually start with meditation. I really do love taking in some type of class, whether it's some kind of YouTube tutorial or some kind of personal growth thing, whatever it is, 20-30 minutes of just learning something. Even if I'm learning a music technique and I don't practice it, it's whatever. Just pulling in that bit of inspiration. I feel like it really just opens your mind and just allows that creativity to flow.
So what have you been on lately?
Lately, I've been doing a Mind Valley class about authentic networking, which has been really interesting. I've been listening to some mindset training, which I also sent you, that Neville Goddard mindset training. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing, master authentic networking because I'm really, I tend to be isolated and introverted. I'm really trying to be better about building my community. Because, so we touched on in the beginning, community is one of the most important things. Mm-hmm. So I've got isolation down. Now I need to get out of that. you know. Yeah, so those are a few things. But like say today, this morning, Ableton just dropped a new update to their software. And so I was just watching some kind of Ableton update tutorials, which are super fascinating. Yeah, I mean, so like music, if I'm working on music, probably not. But, I often will try to pick the music beforehand. If it's something, say if I'm not working on music and I have repetitive tasks to do, my go-to music is liquid drum and bass. I feel like that allows me to just get super in the pocket. I don't have to think about it, and it just flows effortlessly. And it's 160 to 170 BPM, so it's upbeat enough where it keeps you going. But yeah, lighting candles, saying prayers, closing affirmation. I actually picked up from you. That's something I've been doing nowadays.
Nice.
But yeah, I think having a nice scent, or kind of before I get started, I'll spray myself with some sort of like really nice scents, or with a room spray in my room, whether it's light a candle. But then I say some affirmations and I give gratitude, and yeah. But say as far as working goes, like I try to approach the creative process with a goal in mind. That makes sense. And like, okay, like I don't necessarily want to like limit myself to what it is that I'm doing. But say if I know if I only have a certain amount of time to do something, I'll come up with the task that needs to be done, try to complete that task. And that's how I get, say, a small win. I get that nice dopamine hit from completing something. Like say if I'm working on music, suppose we're sitting down and be like, I'm going to work on some music because I have 30 minutes free, or I have an hour free. Like I'm going to work on some music. That's fine. But say if I'm like, I only have 30 minutes, I'm going to tune up the drums for the song. And then I'll do that for 30 minutes. And then I come in and I have a focus and an understanding of what I'm doing. And if I do that and I complete that, then I can get out of the box and I'm like, yeah, did that. And it feels good.
Small wins.
Yes. And I see here on your codex, stop writing when the flow trickles. That's exactly right. That is one of the most important things, knowing when to unplug, when to just be like, you know what? I'm no longer enhancing the thing that I'm doing. I'm just making it worse. So like there comes a point inevitably where the creative decisions are restricted. Most of the time because you're hungry, so you're just making bad decisions. And you're just hacking away. You're almost doing nothing. You're just turning whatever thing you had into a mess because you're out of the pocket. You're out of the flow. So knowing when to be like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to take a break. Go hang out with my partner. Whatever it is. Go for a walk. Watch TV. Kick it. Yeah. Knowing when to stop is critical.
And on that note.
And that wraps it up.
I'd like to thank our first guest, Adam Soltau. Adam Meow. 9 Lives.
Thanks for having me.
The Secret Fire clothing brand.
Thank you for bringing me on. This was really inspiring and enlightening. First podcast I've ever done.
Yeah. Eclipse of the Morning Star, out 325. Go pick up your copy and check out Adam's and everyone else's artwork. And until next time.
This book is really good. I definitely recommend you go out and get it or check it out. Support Robert. He's an amazing creator. It's a monumental piece of artwork that he's created. And yeah, I can't wait to reread it.
Nice. All right. Thank you for being with us today.
Meow.
Need to sign off.
Oh.
I'll come up with one.
Yeah, I gotta come up with something snappy. The eclipse has passed or something, or whatever. some clever thing.
Right.
That goes with the opening.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the phases. We'll come up with something.
All right, peace out.
Yeah. Check you later. Wow. Yeah, that was cool, man. Cool. Yeah. You can find Eclipse of the Morning Star at any search engine that you search for things. Just type in Eclipse of the Morning Star and there it will be. And you can buy it and you can read. You can read it and enjoy the artwork that's inside of it. Wow!